Like and subscribe. Chapter 15. Chapter 15:1 Despite the chilly cold air of the province, a woman stood her ground, a spear firmly gripped in her hands. The clashing of steel echoed through the frosty air as she faced 5 muscular men, each brandishing a sword. With lightning quick reflexes and a determined gaze, she deflected the first sword strike, redirecting it with a skillful parry. Her movements were precise, fluid, and calculated as she maneuvered gracefully around her opponents. The woman's spear became an extension of her body, an instrument of both defense and offense. As the second man lunged forward, she swiftly sidestepped his attack, countering with a powerful thrust of her spear. It met its mark, striking the man's armor with a resounding impact, sending him stumbling backward. The remaining 3 men closed in, their swords slashing through the air. Undeterred, the woman expertly weaved and dodged, evading their strikes with agility and finesse. Her spear became a blur of motion as she countered each assault, parrying, striking, and maneuvering with breathtaking speed. One by one, her opponents faltered under the relentless assault. Their attacks grew more desperate as they realized their disadvantage against her skill and determination. With a fluid motion, she disarmed one of them, sending his sword flying through the air. Seizing the opportunity, she unleashed a flurry of strikes, forcing the remaining 2 men on the defensive. With a final sweeping strike of her spear, she disarmed another assailant, leaving him disoriented and vulnerable. The woman swiftly incapacitated him with a well-placed strike to his armored chest. Now facing only one opponent, she pressed forward with unwavering resolve. The last man, realizing his impending defeat, attempted a desperate strike. But the woman anticipated his move, parrying his attack and swiftly disarming him. She stood tall, her spear pointed at his throat, asserting her dominance and victory. "Well done, daughter," an elderly man praised, his hands coming together in an applause of admiration. Upon spotting her father, the woman swiftly withdrew her spear from the defeated sparring partner's throat. "When did you arrive, father?" she inquired, her gaze locking with his. "Just a moment ago." "I wanted to witness your training firsthand, and I must say, I am thoroughly impressed," the man responded, a genuine smile gracing his face. "However, I also wish to discuss the matter of you defeating the Marquis Sonny yesterday." Recalling the events, a hint of annoyance colored the woman's expression. "That arrogant fool believes himself to be superior to all. I couldn't bear his conceit, so I challenged him to a duel and swiftly put him in his place," she recounted with a trace of pride in her voice. Her father sighed, his gaze filled with a mix of understanding and concern. "Spear, my dear, it is crucial that you consider finding a suitable husband. You cannot simply overpower every man who attempts to court you." Her cheeks flushed, revealing a rare glimpse of vulnerability. "I care not for marriage," she retorted, her voice tinged with a slight pout. The man and woman were none other than Shri, the former prime minister of the empire, and his daughter Spear. After being outmaneuvered in the political arena by Honest, Shri had chosen retirement in his estate, a land and palace bestowed upon him by the late emperor. The said estate is situated near the empire's border. The place offered respite from the hustle and bustle of the capital. "I can't have my daughter being an old maiden. How else can she understand the burdens of raising a child?" Shri stated with a chuckle. "Father!" Spear exclaimed, her annoyance evident in her voice as she lightly stomped her foot, causing Shri to burst into laughter. As the father and daughter playfully bickered, the defeated sparring partners of Spear quietly left the training area. They were accustomed to witnessing Shri teasing his daughter about her inability to land a husband. Shri's laughter abruptly ceased when a man approached them. It was the steward of the estate, who greeted both Shri and Spear before delivering the news. "Sir Shri, Lady Spear, a messenger from the capital has arrived." Surprised by the steward's statement, Shri furrowed his brow and asked, "A messenger from the capital?" It had been years since Shri had set foot in the capital, and he couldn't fathom why someone would send a message to his estate. Intrigued, Spear inquired further, "What was the message?" "I do not know, my lady. He said that the letter he brings is for the eyes of Sir Shri only," the steward replied. Father and daughter exchanged glances before instructing the steward to lead them to where the messenger was waiting. The messenger, dressed in the standard military attire of the empire, wore a thick coat to combat the chilly weather. He appeared exhausted, his fatigue evident as he consumed a warm bowl of soup with a piece of bread. As Shri entered the room, the messenger immediately stood at attention, still clutching his bread and soup. "At ease, soldier. I am no longer an official of the state," Shri reassured him with a smile. The soldier, momentarily embarrassed, quickly placed his meal on the nearest table and reached into his pocket, pulling out a sealed letter. Shri's eyes widened in shock as he recognized the seal of the office of the prime minister on the letter. It wasn't just him who was surprised, but also Spear and the steward. They all remembered how Honest had ousted Shri from the position of prime minister years ago. Their minds raced with the possibility of Honest launching another attack against Shri. With the letter in his hand, Shri swiftly retreated to his private office, with Spear trailing behind. "What could it be, father?" Spear asked, her voice filled with concern. Not bothering to answer her daughter, Shri immediately retrieved his letter opener and tore open the envelope bearing the prime minister's seal. Inside, he found multiple sheets of paper. With great anticipation, he read through each one while Spear anxiously waited for her father to finish. As Shri placed the final piece of paper down on his table, a burst of joyful laughter escaped his lips, leaving Spear utterly shocked. She wondered if her father had lost his mind. "Father?" she inquired, seeking an explanation. Tears of joy streamed down Shri's face as he looked at his daughter and exclaimed, "We must prepare, my dear." Perplexed, Spear responded, "Prepare for what?" "For our return to the capital," Shri declared with a beaming smile. Creators thoughts support_5 support_5 high support_5. Hope you like my stories. Get advanced chapters in my Patreon. Chapter 16. Chapter 16. In the training area of the night raid hideout, a man stood alone, eyes closed, gripping his staff tightly. The wooden weapon, worn from countless hours of practice, felt familiar and comforting in his hands. He took a deep breath, centering himself before he began. With a fluid motion, the man swung the staff through the air, and a rush of wind followed its path. It wasn't that he possessed the ability to manipulate the wind itself, rather, it was the sheer force behind his movements that seemed to conjure the gusts. As the staff sliced through the air, the invisible energy it displaced created a tangible presence, carrying a hint of power. The man's training was a display of both strength and finesse. Each swing, spin, and strike showcased his raw power, but there was a grace to his movements as well. He moved with a controlled fluidity, his body twisting and turning with remarkable flexibility. As he unleashed a flurry of strikes, the wind responded in kind, intensifying the energy in the area. His training wasn't just about honing his physical strength. It was about pushing the boundaries of his own limitations, exploring the depths of his flexibility. The man executed high kicks, low sweeps, and intricate acrobatic maneuvers, all while maintaining a firm grip on the staff. The wind seemed to echo his motions, amplifying the range of his movements and adding an almost ethereal quality to his training. With an explosive leap, the man propelled himself into the air, his eyes snapping open to reveal a fiery determination. Every muscle in his body coiled with tension, ready to unleash its power. Harnessing the momentum from his powerful jump, he initiated a rapid vertical spin, his body transforming into a mesmerizing blur of motion. The sheer speed and precision of his rotations created a gust of wind that whipped around him. As his descent commenced, he honed his focus, aligning his body flawlessly for the climax. With a resounding cry that pierced the air, he descended like a force of nature, his staff descending alongside him, primed to strike the ground below. The moment of impact reverberated through the surroundings, causing shock waves to ripple outward in awe. It was as if nature itself recognized the raw strength and masterful skill displayed by this exceptional warrior. "Damn it, Bullet!" Leone's exasperated shout echoed through the training area as she hurriedly shielded her bowl of noodles from the swirling dust that built up from the ground. Seated beside her, Shill grappled with her book, desperately holding on to its pages as the force of Bullet's powerful strike threatened to turn them. The two companions had chosen to observe Bullet's training session, hoping to enjoy their meal and immerse themselves in their respective activities. However, they soon found themselves caught in the whirlwind of Bullet's final strike to the ground. Witnessing their predicament, Bullet sheepishly rubbed the back of his head and offered an apologetic smile. Sorry, I didn't notice you there," he admitted, realizing the unintended consequences of his powerful strikes. Observing his genuine remorse, Leone let out a resigned sigh and set her bowl of noodles aside, resigned to the fact that her food was now adorned with sprinkling of dust. "Is it just me, or have I noticed a significant increase in the intensity of your training lately?" Leone inquired with genuine curiosity. Bullet's gaze wandered momentarily to the sky. After a brief pause, he mustered a thoughtful expression and replied, "I just have a lot on my mind recently." Upon hearing Bullet's response, Leone's brow furrowed instantly as she remembered the key events that transpired a few days prior. As she returned to the base, having witnessed the execution of the Prime Minister, the profound depth of emotional turmoil experienced by each member upon hearing her relay the news was beyond measure. Initially, there was a sense of relief that the Prime Minister had been killed, but there was also a sense of disbelief that it was the child emperor himself who had carried out the act. Even Najenda, the leader of the group, felt the need to seek solace in alcohol to fully process the information. However, before they could fully recover from the shock, further details were released by the capital. 2 days after the execution of the Prime Minister and his allies, the officials of the capital made another shocking announcement. It was disclosed that both General Hime and General Nakaido had confessed to the emperor that the Revolutionary Army had been attempting to recruit them. Taking into account the state of the empire at that time they were invited, both generals had contemplated accepting the offer. People speculated that both generals and their armies would face severe consequences and be made examples of, perhaps even executed. However, the child emperor's decision defied all logic. Instead of punishing them, he granted his full pardon to the two generals and their respective armies, as well as appointing them new tasks and responsibilities. General Nakaido, renowned as one of the brightest military minds of his generation, was entrusted with the crucial mission of handling the remaining forces left behind by Honest and Sku. He was granted complete discretion to decide whether to eliminate these forces or reintegrate them into the empire's fold. Meanwhile, General Hime received a prestigious new title as General Inspector, endowing him with the authority to investigate the entire military apparatus of the empire. This included the power to apprehend corrupt military officials and reopen investigations into cases where officers of the army were wrongly imprisoned during Honest's tenure as prime minister. If any officials were found to be falsely accused, General Hime held the power and authority to release them immediately. The news of the emperor's pardon left both generals astounded. During a formal audience with the monarch, They once again swore their unwavering loyalty to the child emperor, with a great General Do and the empire's minister bearing witness to the solemn oath. "Are you contemplating leaving Night Raid?" Lubbock's voice suddenly pierced the air, making his presence known as he sat on a tree branch in the corner of the training ground. With swift agility, he leapt down to the ground and began walking toward the group, scratching the side of his head. "I mean, it's a valid question, especially now that the Prime Minister is dead," he continued, his gaze locked into Bullet. Despite the Empire's analysis of Lubbock's identity as a potential ally of the Revolutionary Army, given his association with a bookstore where a spy was discovered, Lubbock remained unwavering in his loyalty to Night Raid even after the demise of Honest. Though uncertain about the path ahead, one thing was clear to him: as long as Najenda continued to lead Night Raid, he would never entertain the thought of leaving. 2. Bullet was another case altogether. Despite his initial reluctance, he couldn't completely dismiss Lubbock's statement. The idea of leaving Night Raid and taking matters into his own hands by approaching General Hammy had indeed crossed his mind. As a former high-ranking soldier of the Empire, Bullet had witnessed the corruption and manipulations orchestrated by Honest within the military. With Honest's demise, a flicker of hope ignited in his heart. Perhaps the entire military complex of the Empire could be rectified from within. In Bullet's perspective, the child emperor was making all the right moves. As Bullet and Lubbock locked eyes with each other, a tense silence enveloped the entire training ground. Leon felt a surge of annoyance towards Lubbock for provoking such a reaction. While she agreed with his sentiment, she believed that it wasn't wise to vocalize it so boldly. Given the recent events unfolding in the Empire, people were likely grappling with their own uncertainties and contemplating the appropriate course of action. Breaking the silence, Mine and Akam entered the training ground in unison. Mine's voice carried a resolute tone as she exclaimed, "What are you talking about? No one is leaving Night Raid. We were all allies in this fight. The Prime Minister was just one of our targets. The Empire remains entrenched in corruption and injustice. We cannot allow this to divide us." Akam's gaze hardened as she joined the conversation. "Our battle is far from over," she stated resolutely. Her thoughts fixated on a particular general whom she believed deserved a fate similar to the previous Prime Minister. 14 As the group members gradually assembled in the training ground, Najenda remained hidden in a nearby building, observing and listening to the conversation. "Looks like I need to visit the headquarters soon," Najenda stated while smoking her cigarette. She had heard the brief discussion among the group, and now she too fell into contemplative silence. She began to wonder if what they were doing was right. Every single revolutionary member knows that the root cause of the Empire's problem was Honest, and now that he's dead, many would wonder if it is still worth it to continue the war against the Empire, especially now that the child emperor was taking an active hand in helping the Empire flourish. I wonder how's the headquarters going to handle this? Najenda asked herself. For once, she became uncertain of the future that lay before them. Chapter 17 being the Emperor was an exhausting endeavor. This thought constantly occupied Makoto's mind, day in and day out. The recent days had been a whirlwind of responsibilities, and just like any day, this was no different. "To your Majesty, I strongly suggest that you reconsider. We can't keep delaying the supplies any further. Doing so might prolong General Asdith's mission in the northern border," a minister stated, concern evident in his voice. "I understand the potential implications, but I have a different plan for those supplies," I calmly replied. I was currently in the midst of a meeting with several state ministers, among them the temporary acting Prime Minister, Shui. Initially, apart from Shui, who appeared nervous in taking on the role of Prime Minister albeit temporarily, the other ministers remained somewhat skittish in my presence. However, as we continued to meet regularly over the course of several days and they observed that none of them faced the threat of execution, they gradually became more at ease. Eventually, they actively started sharing their opinions, and their initial hesitance dissipated. The main topic of discussion right now revolved around General Asdith's ongoing mobilization to eliminate the army of the northern tribes. From my knowledge of the series, I realized that I had arrived a few months earlier than the canon events were supposed to unfold. In the show, Najenda had hoped that the northern tribe, led by their hero Namasiaka, could stall Asdith's return. However, she had underestimated Asdith's army and power. Now, as the Emperor, I wanted to take an active role in delaying Asdith. Asdith had been deployed just a day before the previous Emperor, Makoto, fell into a coma. My objective was to keep Asdith stationed in the northern border for as long as possible. The most effective way to achieve this was by continuously disrupting the logistics of her army. Without proper provisions, her troops would be forced to scavenge for themselves. 24 The longer I could keep Asdith away from the capital, the better it would be for me. Personally, I had no desire to align myself with Asdith. There were 3 main reasons for this decision. Firstly, her psychopathic tendencies were concerning. Her lack of empathy, sadistic nature, and enjoyment of inflicting pain on others made her unsuitable for the renewed empire I aimed to build. 26. Secondly, her reputation was tarnished. Throughout the years, Asdith had been the empire's instrument for eliminating various individuals, including not only enemy armies but also innocent civilians. She would wipe out entire tribes, leaving no survivors. This reputation had spread within and beyond the borders, which could potentially harm the image of the future empire I envisioned. 10 Lastly, I doubted my ability to control her safely. This was perhaps the most challenging aspect. I did not believe Esdeath to be completely loyal to the Empire, and maintaining control over her would be a precarious task. 8. At present, no one was aware of my plan to delay Esdeath, not even General Do or Prime Minister Shui. I intended to maintain this secrecy for as long as possible. I was still contemplating a strategy that would prompt Esdeath to voluntarily secede from the Empire. By achieving this, I would have the freedom to openly label her as a traitor without tarnishing the Empire's image. 39. Esdeath may be powerful, but depriving her troops of food and water will significantly slow them down. This will provide the northern tribes with more time to fortify their defenses, potentially resulting in more casualties when the inevitable clash occurs. I worry about the families of those soldiers who may be lost due to this delay, a minister added with worry in his voice. 2. While it's true that such a scenario may occur, it's not a concern that weighs heavily on my mind. From what I understand, all of Esdeath's troops are complicit in her crimes. If they were to face justice on Earth, each and every one of them would be charged with war crimes. It is true that they were following orders, but that does not absolve them of responsibility. 18. My decision on this matter is final. Inform General Esdeath that they must conserve their supplies until we can deliver to them the next batch of provisions. If need be, inform her to set up camp for a while so that they can gather supplies themselves before they continue marching. I hold unwavering faith in General Esdeath's exceptional strategic prowess. I am confident that she possesses the skills necessary to dismantle any defenses that the northern tribe may establish due to this delay, I replied. 2. I could discern the questioning looks on the faces of the ministers, and even acting Prime Minister Shui seemed to doubt my decision. Then, what are we to do with all those supplies, Your Majesty? Another minister asked. I would like to give it to the people of the capital, I said with a smile on my face. 12. Due to multiple wars within and outside the border, the empire was in a deep recession, and many people in the capital couldn't afford to eat regularly. I wanted to demonstrate to the people that I am actively fulfilling my word to make the empire great again. This would further enhance the common folks' opinion of me. Too well, that could be arranged, the eldest minister stated, his hand resting thoughtfully on his chin. Perhaps tomorrow would be the soonest possibility, he added, considering the logistics. Good, ensure that it is done efficiently, I stated firmly to the old minister. Turning my attention to the acting prime minister, I requested, now, I would like to receive some updates. Acting Prime Minister Shui rose from his seat and retrieved a folder containing a collection of classified documents. He began, General Nakaido has discovered that Sku, the former Prime Minister's right-hand man, is in command of multiple assassin units. Currently, he is assessing the scale of this group and determining whether they can be brought under control. He has already started gathering them in a classified military outpost within the Empire. As the word assassins hung in the air, a wave of unease rippled through the room, evident in the minister's tense postures and darting glances among each other. It was no secret that the whispers of honest assassin troops had reached their ears before, yet they had mostly not bothered to see if such claims were true or not. Just like true politicians, they had most likely decided to remain oblivious to the assassin group that Honest was creating at that time. One, they most likely decided to act naive in this regard, especially when Honest was still in power back then. They probably didn't want to poke their noses in things that might potentially kill them. General Hemi has begun reviewing the files of imprisoned military officials to investigate potential cases of wrongful accusations by the former Prime Minister. Additionally, his lieutenants are now conducting investigations at different military outposts to uncover any instances of corruption within the ranks of the military. Prime Minister Shui continued. How about the other matter? I asked. Your Majesty, the capital guards have begun entering the noble houses within the capital, demanding unpaid taxes from the past few years, Shui reported, handing Makoto a stack of papers containing the current tally of nobles who had started paying. Thank you, Minister Shui, I acknowledged, taking the documents and skimming them. Has there been any resistance? I inquired. Some nobles have tried to resist, claiming they have already paid, but the capital guards were prepared and proved that the documents they possessed were fake, Shui replied. Due to the recession, the empire was in dire need of funds. Addressing the financial aspect was one of my top priorities to gain the necessary resources to tackle other problems. Working together, acting Prime Minister Shui and I began investigating the nobles and discovered numerous counterfeit documents, falsely indicating that taxes had been paid. Acting swiftly, we compiled a list of nobles in the capital who had evaded payment. There was no doubt that the former prime minister was behind this scheme. He most likely instructed the nobles to pay him a smaller amount than their yearly taxes, and in return he would provide them with forged documents as proof of payments to the empire. What about arrests? I asked. Multiple arrests have been made, not only for those who refuse to pay taxes but also due to disturbing discoveries within their mansions. In one noble family's estate, multiple bodies were found, bearing signs of torture before their deaths. Prime Minister Shui revealed with a hint of anger in his voice. Such vile acts were abhorrent to him. 2. I want them prosecuted with the full extent of the imperial law. Their nobility titles stripped from them, all their belongings confiscated by the crown, and once they are hanged for their crimes, which I'm sure would be the verdict, I want their bodies exposed like those of the spies that General Do captured. and their crimes shown to the public. It would be a sign to the ordinary civilians that the Empire will not let such crimes go unpunished. Even if you are a noble, the law must always be respected, I declared, with a cold and unwavering voice. 6. I fully support that decision, Your Majesty, Shui affirmed. Author's notes: I'm not sure if people would like this chapter. 92. Creators thoughts support _5 support _5 high support _5. Hope you like my stories. Chapter 18. Chapter 18. As the child emperor conducted a crucial meeting with the acting prime ministers and ministers, the northern part of the empire bore witness to a woman in dire straits. Her body was marred by multiple wounds that would have proved fatal for most. However, through her remarkable mastery of her own body, and some pills and first aid kits she stole from the soldiers pursuing her, she was able to stave off excessive blood loss and death. She was none other than the member of the 4 Rakshasa demons of the former Prime Minister Honest, Suzuka. Damdo and his soldiers, Suzuka uttered between heavy breaths. Her once pristine clothes now lay in tatters, soaked in blood and dirt. Despite having successfully fled the capital a few days ago, she found herself relentlessly pursued by those soldiers, with 2 of the general's top lieutenants spearheading the chase. While individually these lieutenants lacked the strength to defeat her in one-on-one combat, the sheer number of enemy troops and the injuries she had sustained during her escape greatly hindered her abilities. Every time an opportunity arose for her to eliminate either of the lieutenants, their accompanying soldiers would swiftly intervene, rescuing their commanding officer. This infuriating cycle of evasion, brief skirmishes, and subsequent retreat had persisted for several days. Suzuka knew the fault didn't lie with her inability to elude them. Her injuries had been worsening with each passing day, progressively slowing her down, making her tracks easily detectable and causing escape all the more arduous. Seeking refuge in a dense forest at the northern border, she found herself immersed in the stillness of the surroundings, providing a temporary respite from the relentless pursuit of the imperial soldiers. With her back against a sturdy tree trunk, she allowed her weary legs to rest, feeling the weight of exhaustion taking hold of her. In her trembling hands, she clutched an assortment of herbal plants she had managed to gather while navigating through the foliage, their faint aroma mingling with the scent of dirt and sweat. Her physical strength waned, and her muscles ached with each movement. The relentless chase had taken its toll, leaving her with new wounds that marred her already battered body. As she carefully assessed her injuries, she realized that her old wounds had reopened, dashing her hopes for a swift recovery. The need to treat her wounds became imperative, yet the prospect of stitching or cauterizing them seemed daunting, if not impossible. In her current state of weariness and limited resources, she could only rely on the herbal plants she had gathered to help alleviate the pain and promote healing, even if only temporarily. As much as I like pain, I don't want to die yet, Suzuka declared, loosening her muscles and carefully applying crushed herbal paste to each wound. She had no idea what had become of Ibara and Sten. The 3 of them, a group of hardened assassins, had unanimously agreed that their best chance of survival was to part ways. As Suzuka's gaze fixated on the expanse of the blue sky above, frustration gnawed at her. I swear, if those 2 end up finding safety while those soldiers continue to chase after me, I'll be beyond furious, she muttered with frustration. Despite the time they had spent together, the members of the 4 Rakshasa demons were not truly friends. They were merely bound by the hefty sum of money that Honest had paid them to work as a team. In any other circumstances, they wouldn't have willingly spent a moment in each other's company. Soon, the distinct sound of rustling leaves reached Suzuka's ears, instantly jolting her into high alert. Though her weary body longed for rest, she swiftly made the decision to abandon any notion of relaxation and instead bolted in the opposite direction. In that moment, she had no clear destination in mind. All that mattered was her survival, fueling her desperate escape. Meanwhile, why are we the ones doing this? Shouldn't it be the grunts who are supposed to handle such tasks? Voiced a man with evident annoyance. He possessed a robust, muscular physique, spiky blonde hair, and striking white eyes devoid of pupils. Accompanying him were 2 individuals dressed in matching attire, donning standard imperial officer coats in a deep black shade. The order came directly from General Asdeath herself, explained that tall man, his gray hair styled into a long ponytail. His piercing blue eyes were accentuated by a mustache. She noticed that our supplies were dwindling rapidly, and she wants us to replenish them before we run out completely. The general is thinking ahead, he added. I don't mind it, personally. I have been itching to kill something for a while now, remarked the smallest among the trio. This young man possessed a slight frame, with blonde hair and captivating golden eyes. There was a certain feline quality about him, evident in his sharp teeth and slit-like pupils. The 3 of them were none other than the 3 Beasts, the chief enforcers of General Asdeath's formidable army. In recent days, the decrease in supplies had forced Asdeath's forces to establish a camp in the forest of the northern border. Desperate to bolster their provisions, Asdeath had tasked her enforcers with procuring substantial quantities of danger beast meat. While water was something Asdeath's army didn't have to worry about due to her ice powers, finding sustenance for her soldiers had become a pressing concern. Do you truly believe the news we received from the capital, Liver? Inquired Didara, his voice tinged with curiosity. Liver, upon hearing the question, maintained his silence. The news they had received from the Empire was nothing short of shocking. and he found it understandable that their supplies would be affected as a result. While Asdeath found the news intriguing, Liver found it exhilarating. The demise of the man who had stripped him of everything brought a profound sense of satisfaction to his heart, although he kept his emotions concealed behind his stoic demeanor when he found out the news. "Cat got your tongue, Liver?" Nia teased, noticing the serious expression on Liver's face. Before Liver could respond to Nia's remark, the three individuals heard a series of howls in the distance, accompanied by the sound of gunshots and metal shattering. Their senses heightened, they exchanged glances and swiftly sprinted towards the source of the conflict. As they drew closer, the cries of dying men became more audible. Liver immediately instructed his companions to leap onto the taller trees in order to gain a vantage point to survey the area. "Those are Imperial Army soldiers," Didar remarked grimly, observing the soldiers being attacked by a pack of danger beasts. "Night wolves," Nia added, identifying the formidable creatures responsible for the assault. Night wolves were larger and more resilient than regular wolves, their thick fur capable of deflecting most blades, which in turn makes them extremely dangerous creatures. "Should we intervene?" Didar inquired, noting that the outnumbered soldiers numbered less than 10. "It's too late," Liver replied solemnly, assessing the severity of the soldiers' wounds. Even if they were to be evacuated to their camp, their chances of survival seem slim. Suddenly, the trio was taken by surprise as they witnessed a night wolf being launched into the air. Their attention immediately shifted towards the source of this spectacle, a woman clutching a broken sword in her hand. "Isn't that one of the 4 Rakshasa demons?" Didar questioned, recognizing the injured woman. "Yeah, she's in pretty bad shape," Nia observed, noting the extent of her injuries. Liver's gaze sharpened as he observed the presence of the former Prime Minister's executioner. Something felt off about the situation. With Honest's recent demise, Suzuka being so far from the capital and bearing wounds that seemed days old, raised suspicions within him. "What about her? Should we lend a hand?" Didar inquired, seeking Liver's decision. As the leader of the 3 beasts, Liver held the highest authority among the group. Despite the uncertain circumstances, he chose to extend aid to Suzuka. Recalling the compassion and support General Asdeath had shown him in the past, Liver commanded the group, "Eliminate the night wolves and let's rescue the girl. Afterwards we can have our soldiers gather the wolves' meat for our supply." "Finally, some action," Nia exclaimed. "Whatever," Didar replied nonchalantly, while taking out his axe-type imperial arms. A few hours later, Liver could be seen standing in front of Asdeath, with his hands behind his back. "You brought home a stray, Liver," Asdeath stated while placing a document down on her table. "I believe she would be a useful addition to your forces, General Asdeath," Liver said with a slight bow. Asdeath said nothing as she stood up from her seat and went outside of her tent. She surveyed her entire army with mild amusement. She didn't care who Liver brought back into her camp, not even if she was a member of the 4 Rakshasa demons, a member of Honest's attack dogs. For now, keep her presence inside the camp a secret. Make sure she recovers from her injuries, Asdeath commanded. "It shall be done, General Asdeath," Liver replied with a bow. The report Asdeath had been reading moments ago provided a more detailed account of the events surrounding the death of the Prime Minister. Liver had yet to lay his eyes on it, unaware of its contents. If he had known, he would have taken the drastic step of killing Suzuka to prevent trouble from reaching Asdeath's doorstep. And Asdeath was fully aware of this, but she held no genuine concern for the girl Liver had brought into her camp. For her, she didn't care that the 4 Rakshasa demons were part of the group General Do was trying to eliminate. As a fellow general, Asdeath believes that His Majesty will grant Suzuka pardon if she intervenes on her behalf. She intends for the girl to fully recover before sending a message to the Emperor. "Before I take my leave, General Asdeath, may I ask a question?" Liver inquired, maintaining a neutral tone. "What is it?" Asdeath responded. Liver paused for a moment before asking, "When will we resume our attack on the northern tribe?" After a brief moment of contemplation, Asdeath replied, "His Majesty has not yet rescinded any orders regarding our attack. For now, we will gather supplies here in the forest and await the additional provisions that the Empire will provide." Chapter 19. Wave felt a mix of anxiety and excitement as he caught sight of the capital in the distance. One moment he was out at sea, battling pirates and hunting danger beasts as part of the Imperial Navy, and now he was unexpectedly summoned to the capital. Rumors circulated that only the Admiral of the Navy knew who issued the order. To transport him swiftly, the Admiral arranged for a flying danger beast to pick him up from his station ship and bring him close to the capital. Just before the beast departed, its rider gave him instructions and a letter that would allow him entry in the capital's military barracks. As Wave made his way closer to the imposing gates of the capital, the intensity of the curious gazes directed at him only grew stronger. It was evident that whispers and hushed conversations revolved around his presence. "Damn it, I can't escape the fact that I still reek of fish and sea," Wave thought with a tinge of embarrassment. The urgent summons had left him with no opportunity to freshen up, and the lingering scent acted as a social barrier, swiftly parting the crowd to make way for him. 1. Realizing that there was nothing he could do, he took a deep breath, steeling himself for the task at hand, and ventured into the bustling heart of the capital. The unfamiliar sights and sounds bombarded his senses, but he couldn't resist the allure of the various stores that lined the streets, tempting him with their array of wares and mouth-watering aromas. Succumbing to his cravings, he occasionally treated himself to delectable food, savoring each bite as a fleeting reprieve from the pressures of his journey. But as Wave continued to wander, His leisurely exploration suddenly took a troubling twist. Panic filled his voice as he muttered under his breath, "Oh no, I'm lost. This is really bad." He tried to ask for directions, but due to his smell people immediately dismissed him. This is not good, Wave thought anxiously to himself. The realization that missing his summon time could have severe consequences for his military career weighed heavily on him. Whoever had the power to compel the Admiral's personal involvement was someone he couldn't afford to offend even in the slightest. Wave's anxiety surged as he grappled with the gravity of the situation. Suddenly, a woman clad in a Capitol Guard attire approached him, interrupting his worrisome thoughts. "Hello there," she greeted him with a warm smile on her face, instantly capturing his attention. Wave's eyes instinctively drifted to the creature nestled in the woman's embrace, piquing his curiosity. The woman introduced herself with gusto, proclaiming, "I am Saru, member of the Capitol Guard and hero of justice." She saluted him proudly, her right hand raised. Wave couldn't help but find her greeting peculiar and a little bit weird, but he was grateful for the interruption, nonetheless. Gathering himself, he shared his predicament. "Actually, I'm kind of lost. I need to go to the military barracks." "Why do you want to go there?" Saru asked, her head tilting to the side. "You see, I was summoned here in the capital and I'm about to miss my summon time," Wave stated as he scratched the back of his head awkwardly. "Oh, I see. You're in luck. I'm also going there myself." "Let's go together then," Saru stated. Realizing that he was saved from his predicament, Wave immediately thanked Saru and followed her lead. Breaking the silence during their walk, Wave couldn't help but be curious about the creature Saru held in her hand. He mustered up the courage to inquire, "What's that in your hand? Is it some kind of domesticated danger beast, or something?" Saru's eyes lit up as she proudly lifted the creature, responding, "This is my partner of justice, the Imperial Arms, Hekadan Kairu. I call him Koro for short." Apparently, none of the top-ranking officers had a good affinity with Koro. "But during my examination, Koro responded to my heart of justice, and we formed a unique bond." Impressed by her companion's unique weapon, Wave couldn't resist sharing his own. With a hint of excitement, he drew a distinctive, short black blade hidden at his back. "This is the Imperial Arms, Grand Chariot," he revealed. Saru's interest piqued. She inquired, "That's cool. How did you acquire it?" Wave explained, "The Grand Chariot is usually passed down in the Navy. After several officers were deemed unworthy, numerous Navy soldiers were given a chance to wield it until it finally responded to me." Realizing their shared journey of unexpected weapon affinity, Saru smiled brightly and asked, "So, we essentially have a similar story, huh?" Wave chuckled and nodded in agreement, replying, "Indeed we do." Arriving at the military barracks, Wave and Saru were startled to discover that they held identical letters. It dawned on them that their purpose for being there was precisely the same. The guard, upon seeing the letter, wasted no time and promptly assigned an escort for the two of them. "Please wait here," the guard instructed, leading them to a room. Stepping inside, they were surprised to find a young man with blonde hair engrossed in a book, sitting comfortably with a cup of warm tea in front of him. Sensing their presence, the blonde man closed his book and greeted them with a warm smile. "I thought I was the only one. For a moment, I was starting to feel a bit lonely," he chuckled. "I'm Run. Nice to meet you all." Wave and Saru exchanged glances and swiftly introduced themselves in response. As the three individuals settled into their seats, an unusual silence enveloped the room. Saru seemed content, occupied with playing with Koro, her loyal companion. However, the silence weighed heavily on Wave, who found himself unaccustomed to such quietness. He cast a glance at Run, hoping for some conversation, but received only a polite smile in return. It seemed Run was content to maintain the silence, something Wave did not like. Wave fidgeted slightly, his restless nature yearning for interaction and the comfort of shared words. He contemplated breaking the silence himself, but hesitated, unsure of how to begin. Suddenly, the door of the room was opened and in came a man that was known throughout the capital. It was none other than the great General Abdo. Creators thoughts support_5 support_5 high support_5. Hope you like my stories. Get advanced chapters in my Patreon.